switches on to the live stream. Type in the chat when we're good to go. That'd be great. Okay, so Boris has said that we're live, so ready when you are, Councillor Scott.
Right. Thank you, Mrs. G. Good evening, everyone, all the residents, we hope, of North Area. It's wonderful to have you. This is the North Area Committee, and I am the Vice Chair of the North Area Committee. I'm Councillor Jocelyn Scott, one of the West Chesterton councillors, and the Chair of the committee, Councillor McQueen, is present. However, difficulty has been experienced in her household with City Fibre, and therefore she believes that there may be problems with the reception that she's having, and so I have entered into the breach and will be chairing with Councillor McQueen handily on hand to draw attention should I fall into error. Members of the public, of course, are welcome to view the live stream of this meeting, and of course, if you're hearing us now, you are there on our live stream, and we are running these meetings online so that members of the public can have an opportunity to participate despite the COVID-19 restrictions. We all know that we've come off the COVID-19 restrictions with the great good offices of the Prime Minister. At the same time, we're also conscious that some people are wishing to remain or to maintain social distancing and other awareness in relation to COVID-19. However, because we're conducting the proceeding in this way, we won't make formal decisions. We may come to agreement on matters, and let's hope that we can, but that won't be a formal decision-making process because we're precluded from doing that. So without further ado, as they say, I'll say welcome to all my fellow councillors and ask my fellow councillors if they would introduce themselves so that the members of the public know who we are. They know because they can see our names, but I think it's a good idea for us to introduce ourselves. So why don't we start? We all know the alphabet, so could we please work through the alphabet? And that will, I think, be Councillor DL first. Thanks, Councillor.
I think Councillor Collis may question that, but
Councillor Cox-Condren.
Yes, indeed. But I don't mind saying hello. So I'm Councillor Jamie DL, Councillor for West Chesterton.
Thank you. And I do beg your pardon, Councillor Collis. It's that you're not on my screen. It's not my alphabet problem. Please go ahead.
That's quite all right, Councillor Scott. Thank you. I'm Councillor Collis. I'm a City Councillor for King's Hedges and Deputy Leader of the City Council. Thank you.
Good. And now, of course, Councillor Bird may have something to say about this as well. So, Councillor Bird, would you please indicate that your name begins with B so that you're ahead of us all in the alphabet? Thank you.
Yeah. Definitely B. Good evening, Councillor Jerry Bird from East Chesterton for City and County Councillor for Chesterton.
Thank you. And now I think that Councillor Hilary Cox-Condren may well be next in the alphabet. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm Councillor Hilary Cox-Condren, County Councillor for Arbury.
Thank you. Now, whoever's next in the alphabet will know because they know their own name and they know their number on the alphabet. Please identify yourself.
I think it's me. It's Councillor Jenny Gawthorpe-Wood, King's Hedges City Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Gawthorpe-Wood. And now, is it Councillor Machini? No, Councillor
should go next. This is being tested on the alphabet. That didn't tell me that was part of the brief. Sorry. Would be Matt's next. Elisa Meschini, County Councillor for King's Hedges Division.
Thank you, Councillor. And I guess that, yes, Councillor McQueen should
Yeah.
really come next because as a matter of formality, the MCs come first.
Bloody
Thank you.
failed, didn't I? Sorry.
It's my fault.
Councillor Carla McQueen here from East Chesterton.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Now, I suspect it's Councillor Ray. No, yes, Councillor Ray.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ray. I'm the county councillor for Castle, so I just sneak into North area.
Good, thank you. And now it's the S's, and that means I think that my Councillor Sargent comes first, and the other S's will follow him.
Councillor Mike Sargent, Councillor for West Chesterton.
And I've already introduced myself, so the next is it Councillor Smart.
Yeah, hello. So I'm Councillor Martin Smart. I'm one of the city councillors in King's Hedges ward.
And my fault again. Actually, it's really Councillor Shield.
Oh, hello. My name's Patrick, Councillor Patrick Shield from Harbour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Oh, and then Councillor Todd Jones, I assume.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sometimes I've been, filed under T or J actually, but I think you're correct to call me as Councillor Todd Jones. But yes, I'm Mike Todd Jones, City Councillor for Arbury.
Thank you. All those introductions are much appreciated. And is there any councillor who has yet to identify her or himself? No, I think we're right then. Good. So then we have apologies. Are there any apologies, please, Ms. Steed?
I haven't been notified of any, but I'm happy to take any if councillors have any. Councillor Dale's got his hand.
Yeah,
Councillor Bond.
Yeah, I have an apology from Councillor Bond. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Bond. Good. So then we go on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to be notified? No. And then we come to the minutes. Is everybody content with the minutes from the last meeting of the North Area Committee? It would appear so. And then we move, so I'm happy then to, oh no, again, Councillor Wood, Gawthorpe Wood.
Just a minor one. I am an allotment holder at Chesterton Allotment Association on Howgate Road.
Thank you. Good. We'll note that in the declarations of interest. And then we don't have an item, matters arising from the minutes, but if anybody does have a matter arising from the minutes, this can be dealt with as we proceed. We then come to the committee action sheet. Are there any matters to raise in relation to the committee action sheet? Are you aware of any matters with which we should be dealing, please, Mrs. Steed?
If anyone has any updates, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I'm not aware of any further updates, Chair.
Thank you. Good. So then we proceed next to the open forum, and we have a number of questions. And perhaps if we could take I know that Mrs. Rundblad is here, and then we have a question from questions from Mrs. Rundblad. We have questions from Mrs. Rivington and questions from Mr. Swift. And there's a fourth question, the one in relation to Arbury Road. And are there any more questions, Mrs. Steed, that we need to deal with?
I'm not aware of any others at the moment, Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Good. So why don't we then proceed with Mrs. Rivington on the environmental issues? Thanks, Councillor Collis.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yes. So do you want me to read the questions out? Because I'm not sure that everyone's seen them, have they?
Yes, that if you would do that, that would be appreciated if Ms. Rivington's not present or present elsewhere. So thank you. Yes.
I don't think she is, so I'll read the questions out. So it's a two-part question. Part one, she asks, could you please give the dates, streets and wards of planned herbicide treatments in King's Hedges, East Chesterton and West Chesterton for March, April, May and June 2022, recognising that actual dates may later be changed due to the weather conditions. And the second part of the question is, can you please give the web address of the City Council's website displaying this information to residents? This is so that they can avoid herbicide sprayed areas which can cause neurotoxicity and probably cause cancer. That's World Health Organization information. This was verbally promised at Environment Community Scrutiny Committee on the 27th of January 2022. So I'll give a fairly brief answer, and thank you, Anne, for your question. So on the 27th, the meeting at which Anne refers to, we approved the herbicide reduction plan project initiation documents. We agreed Newnham and Arbury, particularly affecting this committee, as the two trial wards that would be totally herbicide free for 2022. And we also introduced up to 12 herbicide free streets in addition to and outside of the two trial herbicide free wards. So those could include streets in West Chesterton, East Chesterton, and also King's Hedges as well. So we're now, officers are now working to a launch in early March. The dates of the planned herbicide applications will be made available ahead of any scheduled treatments, and they will be on that website. The web pages aren't yet signed off, but I have had a progress update from officers, and they are at a very advanced draft stage. So I've had sight of what they will look like and the content of them, and we expect those to be launched very shortly. And I think that covers all of Anne's question.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Collis. That's appreciated. And I note that perhaps if Mrs. Rundblad, because she's present, would ask her question now.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Scott. I have two questions, then I'll start with the first one, of course. So the present situation on Histon Road is that the road is finished according to GCP, but the residents do not believe that. There are still important issues to finalize. Number one, it is the signaling system from Donick or someone is not working properly due to a broken loop below the center of the junction of Huntington, Victoria and Histon Roads. If you look at the minutes, you see that was supposed to be finished last year. Two, the approved PRO 763 and 764 regarding 20 miles per hour in southern part from the junction to Aikman Street and the northern part for the reduction of 40 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour from the A14 to the Cambridge city limits. They have not yet been implemented by appropriate signage. So this is quite concerning since we will have the Milton Road nighttime diversions commencing in April, May 2022. So if the signals do not function at that time, we may expect longer AGV stops with fumes at the Huntington Junction and speeding all along the road. GCP has not committed to this construction due to heavy workload with Milton Road. So HRL kindly asks our local councillors to support the residents concerning the nighttime diversions by requesting the GCP to finalize the signal issues and the speeding issues before the diversions come into effect in April 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rundblad. Now, is there any councillor who would like to respond to this question? I know that Councillor Machini is on the Greater Cambridge Partnership executive board, and that Councillor Todd Jones was directly involved in the Histon Road project. So perhaps one of you would like to respond. I see Councillor Todd Jones would like to. Thanks, Councillor Todd Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure Councillor Moschini might also want to follow up as well. But I was just going to say to Lillian Rundblad that I'm happy as usual, Lillian, we can have an initial meeting with the project officer, Paul van der Balk, to raise a number of those concerns, because I suspect quite a few of them we can have a fruitful discussion about, I would imagine. So if you're happy for us to meet, as you know, I'm still, I think, nominally chair of the Histon Road Liaison Forum, you were vice chair. We had many a meeting with the project officer, Paul van der Balk, and I suspect we can usefully discuss a lot of the points you've raised. That's not in any way to say that they shouldn't be properly answered to from the GCP, and Councillor Moschini might want to say something, but can I propose that we have our own discussion too with the project officer? Would that be acceptable?
That would be acceptable if it comes true.
Of course, and just to say that I do know that those things are known to Paul van der Balk. He knows, we've been talking about it. I know he knows. God, I've lost myself now. He's working on it. And what I'm going to do is, you know, Mike and I will go away and ask him to give us the latest updates on this, because I do agree that we need to get somewhere before construction on Milton Road starts. And I think that's very much the idea. That's very much what we're all aiming for. So we'll go away and talk about it.
Could I add wait a minute. I have had a preliminary sort of answer from Milestones that they may think about construction before, but I mean, it's so uncertain. And also, I like to remind you, if you look at your November minutes, we discussed the speed camera, and it said then that the speed camera was going to be moved, but it isn't. It's still there in the good position. I'm just wondering, is it working?
It appears that what we can do is
Richard Swift.
Oh, sorry. What we can
is now joining.
What we can do is have it checked to see whether it is working. I know that if it's battery operated, there have been some issues with the batteries over the COVID-19 period, and I also know that Councillor Sargent has been following up very strenuously in relation to the batteries. So we'll have that matter checked. Thanks, Mrs. Rundblad. And now, thank you. Good. There is a question from Thomas Andrews. That's the one.
Sorry, number 2 question.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Mrs. Rundblad. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Scott. I'm always talking a lot. So, is the present design and construction of Histon Road safe? In a questionnaire distributed to members and friends, HRA asked which issues residents think should be prioritized for improvements. Number 1 was the junction by Huntingdon Victoria roads. Number 2 was unsafe pavements. And safety for walking and cycling has been the backbone of the whole project, as well as safety between the cycle lanes and pavements. Compliance regarding both the Cambridge curb, the new cycleway demarcation blocks by ATS, which are intended for Milton Road as well, and the drop curbs are many. So the feeling is that these are unsafe. In a letter to the Cambridgeshire County Council Highways and Transport Committee, HRA has pointed out that the pavement width in general is very variable and significantly narrower than the design. In some places as little as 0.96 meter or 102 meter. We did have a control check, and we have an annex available on request if you want to see the true figures. Residents would appreciate your response, and this is the Shire, to these comments and confirmation that the proposed audit will be independent, post-project review, as the HMT Green Book mandates, and residents note that the aims for this project were to increase safety. So also in this kind, we kindly ask our local councillors to support and work hard to improve the quality of the present construction and safety for walking and cycling along Histon Road. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mrs. Rundblad. And I see that Councillor Sargent has his hand raised. So, Councillor Sargent, please go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, it wasn't on this matter. I wanted to clarify with Lillian whether it's she's talking about a speed camera, of which there is one on Histon Road, or a speed display unit.
No, it's the actual true speed camera. They still left it there by the bus stop.
Okay, so that's a county council and police matter then, isn't it? Okay, thanks.
Good. Thanks, Councillor Sargent. Now, is there a response then to Mrs. Rundblad's second question? Or do we take it on notice and provide Mrs. Rundblad with a written answer that will go up on the website? Oh, Councillor Todd Jones, good.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, what you just said, Councillor Scott, but also any further points, of course, we can add to our kind of agenda, if you like. I think, as Councillor Moschini said, we'll take away a number of these issues, we'll put them all together and perhaps have a meeting at some point with yourself and Paul Vanderbolt, the project officer for Histon Road. I've had a few issues raised by local residents, which would also worth discussing, and perhaps we can have a really good meeting to try and pick up on a number of these issues. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, there is a number of things, including the post-construction safety audit, which is scheduled, it's ongoing, and we can definitely get updates on where that is going to go. So we'll do that in the next as soon as possible.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, councillors. It would be nice to be finished before Milton Road starts.
Good. Thank you. Excellent. Well, now we come to Mr. Thomas Andrews' question, and I don't know that Mr. Andrews is present. So, Mrs. Steed, would you be happy to read Mr. Andrews' question so that we're all alerted to its terms? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Scott, I'm actually on the calls and I'm happy to read it out myself.
Excellent.
So, good
Sorry,
evening, everybody. Hello. So thanks very much for your time and the opportunity to read this question is much appreciated. So yeah, my name's Thomas Andrews. I'm a resident on Arby Road. My question is in relation to really antisocial noise from really loud motorbikes that we can hear from our property all along Arby Road and Milton Road. So my question is that the committee has acknowledged in the past that noise from motorbikes and loud engines is an antisocial problem. But the police have informed us, that's me and my partner, that they are unable to take action without further evidence. Can the council install sound activated cameras at appropriate points and specifically along Arby Road to better capture or quantify the issue in order to persuade the police to take further action? Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now we've got three people who are wanting to answer. Because I did identify Councillor Sargent earlier, then perhaps Councillor Sargent, then we'll have Councillor DeL, because I know that he's been really concerned about this issue, and then Councillor Moschini. So Councillor Sargent, please.
Well, just some advice really. I mean, I did contact the local area police sergeant and about Victoria Road, and they did take action and they did impound a vehicle. So primarily I think it's a police matter more than anything. So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Now Councillor DeL.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Mr. Andrews. And yes, I think we're all acutely aware of the issue. I actually videoed one of the bikes causing a problem only last week, only to then realise it didn't even have a number plate. So it was impossible to even register that, but I have at least let the police know. One comment I would make, we did actually bring forward a proposal which didn't get full support at council last week for the cameras that, for example, have been used in Kensington. I know, I think Councillor Collis responded on that with questions around the efficacy of those cameras. But I know it's something we want to be able to collect evidence. I think now that we've begun that discussion, I hope the discussions will continue with the Vision Zero partnership as well, which deals with road safety. But I would be very welcoming to hear from other members if we think we can do something to start collecting evidence.
Thank you, Councillor DL. We'll come to Councillor Mastrini and then to Councillor Collis. Thanks, Councillor Mastrini.
Absolutely, thank you. Just to say, the police are very well aware of this because I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's more than one type and more than one, but the ones I am aware of, they gather and start from the Ship Car Park, and they go all the way up to Orchard Park and down Harbour Road. I've followed them. I swear to God, but like I don't know any names, but I feel I know them in every other respect. I have told the police repeatedly where to find them. They know, and we will continue to pressure them to, you know, have more presence in the area effectively, because it's quite a continuous problem. It's going to get worse. It gets worse with the weather, as you know, and it's going to get worse in the summer. In terms of equipment that we can try and put in place to sort this problem, I will defer to my colleague who's coming after me, but I am very keen for these discussions to continue because it's very important.
Thank you. And now to Councillor Collis and then to Councillor Bird.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you to Mr. Andrews for his question. Yes, I think like other councillors here, you know, we know there's a problem. We know there are some clear hotspots across the city, but you know, in reference to this committee, in the north of the city. Councillor DL is quite right. I think, you know, we need to keep reporting. We need to work on that. And those discussions, yes, as Councillor DL mentions, they will continue. I am the City Council representative on the Community Safety Partnership, so I will raise it as an urgent matter for discussion there. And also, you know, within the scope of the Vision Zero partnership that Councillor DL mentioned, I'd be more than happy to be in touch about that as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Collis. And actually, my system is telling me that Councillor Todd Jones preceded Councillor Bird. So Councillor Todd Jones and then Councillor Bird. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thanks for the question. Just to say that I've had a few, you know, direct requests, usually by email, or complaints and concerns, I should say, from RB Road residents in particular, and those that I've dealt with directly. I've also referred on to the neighbourhood sergeant, who often reports to this committee, Sean Ems, and a number of responses back relating to when officers had been specifically carrying out Operation Staple patrols. This is identifying noisy vehicles and trying to take action where they can, and providing a police presence. So, and they have usually got back, or Sean Ems' team have got back to the residents directly concerned. So, really just to report on the fact that other councillors have mentioned that this has been an ongoing issue which we're all very aware of, and we will continue, I'm sure, directly liaise with the police and neighbourhood sergeant where we need to, and make sure that the kind of profile of the incidents is maintained. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Now, Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say, like we've all said, it's a big issue around the north of the city, and with one of our priorities for North Area Committee we set was for antisocial driving. So the police know that is one of our priorities. So I would suggest that Mr. Andrews definitely reports every incident, even if it's 10 in one night. Do it, because that is a priority for this committee, and we have asked the police to abide by this. So do come back to us, Mr. Andrews, if you get nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bird, and thank you, Mr. Andrews. And if I could just really quickly add, I can assure you too that if there were residents here from Chesterton Road, from Milton Road, from De Freville Avenue, as Councillor Bird, I think it was, who told us about the route, or perhaps it was Councillor Collis, but the route actually takes all those roads in, which of course doesn't lessen the issue for people in Arbury Road. I'm not saying this in any way to lessen what's happening to you in Arbury Road, just simply to add that we do want the police to be paying attention, as Councillor Bird said. So thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated. Cheers.
Great, thank you. Good. And now we come to the question from Mr. Swift. Mr. Swift.
Hello, thanks, Jocelyn. My question is about food poverty and is specifically for Councillor Alex Collis. And I'll just give a little bit of background. The Cambridge City Food Poverty Alliance provides foods across half the wards in our city. There are the food banks, but these require vouchers obtainable by interview from Citizens Advice and only cover up to 3 days emergency supply. Then there are the food hubs, but these do not require vouchers and are available for medium to long-term relief, but many centres only open for a couple of hours once or twice a week. In addition, there are pockets of deprivation in more affluent areas such as my ward of West Chesterton. And my 3 questions for Councillor Alex Collis are there any plans to extend the food hubs into wards that are not currently covered? Question number 2, are there any plans to extend the number of days food is provided at food hubs? And finally, are there any plans to publicise more effectively where food banks and food hubs are located in order for residents to access food and donate food more easily? Most people I've talked to only know about the food banks rather than food hubs and are only aware that they can donate food at supermarket collection points. So those are my 3 questions for Councillor Alex Collis, please.
Thanks, Mr. Swift. Yes, Councillor Collis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mr. Swift for his question. Before I get into the detail of the questions, I do just want to highlight the impact that the food hubs have had for communities across the city, including in North Cambridge. We get tens of thousands of visits per year, and it is, I should point out, a huge joint effort. So it's all part of the work of the Food Poverty Alliance, which includes places of worship, includes third sector organisations, it includes representatives of both county and city councils. So it is a huge joint effort. I'll probably take questions 1 and 2 together, if that's all right. So at the moment we have, it's either 9 or 10 food hubs. I am just going to pop into the chat details of all of those. It's a link to the Cambridge Sustainable Food website, who hold the up-to-date list of all emergency food provision in the city. So no, we are not planning on setting up directly any additional hubs. We have 9 at the moment currently. However, if a community organisation came forward that wanted to set up a food hub, we would certainly, as a Food Poverty Alliance and a city council, give them our full support in any way that they need. We have done that before, for example, when the food hub that was at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Arbury closed down because they didn't have the people to run it anymore, and the Shal Jalal in Arbury decided they wanted to set up instead, so we were able to sort of support the move from the church to the mosque as well. I would say that actually, certainly from my own experience of working in a food hub, so I work in the one in Cherry Hinton, that people actually visit multiple food hubs. There is no restrictions on, the number of visits they can make per week. They can go to all of them if they want. And you can see from that link that I've popped into the chat that there is something open every day of the week, apart from Sunday, I think. Most of the food hubs will outside of those hours. So yes, you're right, most run for sort of 1.5 to 2 hour sessions. That's actually pretty resource intensive in terms of volunteer time. Not all food hubs have a paid coordinator. A couple of them do, but most of them don't. So they're entirely reliant on volunteer effort. And actually running a food hub for 2 hours, for it to be open for 2 hours a week, there's actually quite a lot of work outside of that in terms of collecting the food, organising volunteer rotas and so on. But most of those food hubs will give out food outside of that time, that's sort of 1 or 2 hours that they're open a week. As you can see from that link that I put in the chat, there is always somewhere that people can get food if they need it. So I would say I can't speak for all of the food hubs because they're each run separately by, you know, distinct organisations. So, for example, the Trumpington Residents Association run the one in Trumpington. So they run them sort of independently with support from CSF, Food Poverty Alliance and the council. I would say in terms of the Cherry Hinton one, which is the one I know best, there probably aren't plans to expand the number of days per week that we are open, purely because there is something open somewhere in the city every day of the week, like I say, apart from Sunday. Note your point on the promotion and advertising and comms around the food hubs. It can be very difficult to get across the difference between food hubs and food banks. I have been working in this area for several years and I still get it, you know, mixed up myself sometimes. I think in terms of sort of what the council does, we've asked the communities team to do some targeted comms on this to sort of help people understand the difference. I have to say, a lot of people use both. I know lots of people that come to the Cherry Hinton Food Hub also have food bank vouchers as well. As I said, I mean, all the local hubs are individual and each will have their own mechanisms for sort of publicising in the local area. So, for example, you know, for sessions in Chesterton or in Arbury, that can be publicised through CB4 People. We certainly do that a lot in Cherry Hinton in terms of the local Facebook pages as well. And CSF also do quite a bit of publicity as well. I mean, any suggestions on how we can get the word out about the difference between the two and about what's available would be very welcome. You know, we can always improve that and make it better. I should just conclude by saying we are planning to convene a sort of, you know, mini conference, like a half-day conference in May, early May, just after the election period, to help all these organisations, all these food hubs and the Food Poverty Alliance think about where we go next and what communities need and where there might be gaps in provision, and what the future will look like for the food hubs. So details of that will be forthcoming. I expect it to be the week after the elections, but that is not yet confirmed. So that's thinking about sort of long-term sustainable support in the format that communities actually need it. Thanks, Chair.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Collis, and thank you, Mr. Swift. Good. Now, before we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the North Area Committee Area Committee grants for 22 to 23, I just want to say I've actually got a question for the members of the public, the residents who we hope are avidly listening in or viewing this this North Area Committee. We actually regularly discuss, the councillors, how area committees can be made more effective. So really, members of the public and residents, it's up to you to tell us how you believe that we can make the area committees more effective, or if you believe that there should be some other way that we're communicating with residents so that we have a good exchange with the opportunity for questions and answers and so on. So that's my question to you. I'm not expecting an answer right now, but if you do have ideas, then we appreciate very much your communication. And if you contact me, email me, then I would be very happy to hear from you as to your ideas on our area committee, and just as a general rule as to area committees and communications with residents. So thank you. And we now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which, as I said, is the North Area Committee grants for 22 to 23. Thank you. I hand over to the office.
Richard Swift.
Oh, thank you, Chair.
Is now exiting.
Bye, Richard. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, what you've got on this report in Appendix 1 details the applications that have been received for 22-23 funding for projects in the North area, and it makes recommendations for awards that I welcome comments from the committee on tonight. The report also provides information on opportunities offered for the Platinum Jubilee grants for local celebrations. Section 3 of the report really gives background information on the criteria, outcomes and process regarding these grants. And I'd just like to draw the attention to 3.3, where the budget is explained, where we have 70,000 across all area committees, and following the population and poverty formula, which is shared in Appendix 2, there's just over 24,000 for North Area Committee. The Platinum Jubilee information is detailed in 3.8, where we've offered, with a really light touch application form, £500 for events to celebrate this. And 12 of the 39 that we've received have come from North Area, and that totals £5,720, and those are all listed in Appendix 3 and have been recommended for the full amount that have been requested. So if the recommendations for the North Area Committee grants and the Platinum Jubilee grants they're following this consideration by this committee, the budget allocation for the North will have to be increased by 4,567, and that will be done from one of our service project budgets to support the Jubilee activities this year. I'm obviously happy to take any questions or comments in relation to the applications in Appendix 1 or Jubilee in Appendix 3, as any councillors wish to comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks so much, Mrs. Steed. Now, does any councillor have a comment to make about this range of applications and the monies granted to be granted to the different organisations that have made applications? Are there any that councillors would like to comment on? Yes, Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Chair. No, just to say thank you, Jackie. Great work. Lovely to see all the different organisations that are applying for grants again. And it's very important, especially this time, this year with the Jubilee, and some great projects there. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, and we'll miss you.
Thank you, Councillor Bird.
Good. Yes, thank you, Jackie Hanson. Well, perhaps if yes, Councillor Collis and then Councillor Todd Jones.
Not a question on the grants, Chair, but a thank you to Jackie from all of us, as this will be her last North Area Committee talking about community grants, and I'm sure everyone here appreciates. I know you don't do it quite all yourself, Jackie, but you do a lot of the work. And just thank you from all of us, and thank you from people in North Cambridge as well for all the work.
Good.
Thank you.
Councillor Todd Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, can I echo the comments that have just been made? It's not, again, it's not about the specific report, but just to thank Jackie for fantastic hard work and effort over many years with the council in terms of community grants and community and all the community development work, and Jackie, you've done a brilliant job, and I'm really sorry that you're leaving, albeit a little early, but I'm very sad to see you go. It's been fantastic working with you. I know you're having a little leaving event at the Meadows, so I have made a special request for a particular person to attend. I'm hoping they're going to attend. It might be Tom. It might be Tom Cruise, but I'm not going to give anything away. Okay.
Thank you very much for your very kind comments, and of course, they're very much the team behind all of this. But thank you.
Thank you. And then to Councillor DL.
Thank you, Chair. I would echo all of those comments. So thank you, Jackie. I'd also just like to say how actually exciting it is to see the events coming back on after this last couple of years. I know things like Chesterton Festival, you haven't been able to happen for 2 years now. So, and I guess the other thing I would recommend for anyone who's on this call is, I know with all of these events, there's often and groups, there's often also the opportunity to volunteer and support. So anyone who can do that, please do, and hopefully we can have a great year getting back together as a community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Deal. And I see that Mrs. Rundblad, I think, would like to say her thanks too.
Yes, I would like to say thank you, and you're kindly invited to 19th of March to the final of the book about the community Remember System Road. Thank you for all your help that we have had.
Thank you, Lillian. Much appreciated. And again, I echo what you were all saying. It's so good to see all of these projects coming back and to have all of the Jubilee events. We were absolutely so surprised and pleased to get the number of applications. So let's hope for a good year of community activity. Thank you very much.
Perhaps if I might add to Jackie, that I remember coming to the Meadows on the first occasion that I ever came to a North Area Committee, because we used to, in the days before COVID, have the area committee meetings at the Meadows Community Centre, and it was always such a wonderful reception that we all received, and that if we were wandering about looking lonely as a cloud, we were always assisted in terms of being directed to wherever the meeting was in a very pleasant and engaging and helpful way. And I'm sure that we've also spent time at the Meadows Community Centre on other occasions and similarly had the same reception. I mean, it's been a wonderful community asset, the Meadows Community Centre. So I echo everything that everybody said and say thank you very much for from the North Area Committee for all your great hospitality, really, at the community centre. Thank you. Oh,
thank you, Chair.
Good, thanks. So thank you so much. So now, is there any action that we are supposed to be taking in relation to these grants, or it's simply that we take them on notice and we say that we agree as a group, they're not making a decision, that we applaud the effort that's gone in by those applicants and then by the assessment process and by the outcome that is reported to us in this these appendices, Appendix 1 and Appendix 3. Is that correct? That we simply just have to say that we agree? Yes, you're on mute, yes. Jackie. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Great.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So we agree, and we say thank you very much for all the work and effort. As I say, both those who made the applications and then the research process that went into assessing the applications. Thank you. So then we move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is an oral update from the Streets and Open Spaces team on the herbicide-free trials. So I did mean to say at the end of Mrs. Rivington's questions that this matter in any event was going to be outlined in greater detail in this agenda item and then also in the environmental report. So I hand over for the verbal update from the Streets and Open Spaces team on the herbicide-free trials. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Am I able to share a presentation, if that's okay?
I hope so. Yes, Alistair. Yes, excellent.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to give an update on the trial. I thought I'd start off by highlighting the significance of the change with two photographs. We'll see more of the left than the right as we explore a range of offers in the trial. This trial aims to take us to a point where we can reduce, or better still, stop the use of herbicides on our streets and open space. So I thought we'd just get some general context and a summary. The council unanimously voted in favour of declaring a biodiversity emergency in July 2019. In response, the council has stopped the use of herbicides in its play areas, parks and commons. This declaration also included a commitment to reducing and removing the need to use herbicides on highway, footpaths, verges, and the need to find viable alternatives. The council then passed a further amendment or motion in July 21 around the herbicides, which sets out a range of tasks and actions to reduce the reliance of on herbicides as a means of managing unwanted vegetation on public property and assets. That motion then meant that in July this year, the Executive Council was able to approve at committee a herbicide reduction plan with an initiation document. It also took us to a point where we found that we could visit Arbury and Newnham as two wards for to be completely herbicide free by 2022. And it also introduced the opportunity for 12 streets to identify themselves as herbicide free. And we're about to launch that in March this year. So what are the benefits and the opportunities? This trial gives us some superb opportunities to revisit and reevaluate how we approach and how we manage our present local and city environment. Herbicides are cheap, and therefore they're very often used and certainly over-relied upon. And weeds are often perceived as presenting an uncared environment, and we need to change this. The trial creates space to collaborate with organisations such as Pesticide Free Cambridge, the County Council, residents groups, schools, and a list that's probably too long for tonight. There is space for innovation, to try new things, to continue working on new ideas and stop things that we're currently doing. We've already learnt a lot from others by sharing our trial ideas. We've got a continued dialogue where we can start to develop and share best practice with partners. And the trial gives us opportunities to improve the biodiversity of the spaces we live in and realise some of the wealth of human benefits from ecosystem services. So what from the motion, what are the outcomes from that motion passed in July 2021? We've identified those two wards, as I mentioned before, so Arbury is one of those. We've also completed an assessment of the resources that we're going to need to support this trial, which was achieved some funding in the current budget round, which was approved last week. We've also made a commitment to an awareness campaign, and we're developing that at the moment. We've also got to report back to committee on the outcomes of the trial, and we'll obviously be keeping and monitoring a close eye on how things progress. We're currently working on how we give dates and times for the planned treatments. And again, as I say, we're looking to launch that in March this year. So we've got the website ready, queued. We're just looking to make sure that we've got all the streets in the right order of application. Oops, sorry, just lost my place. So what next? We're almost at that point to sign off. We have a few more things to clarify. We have a bit more to do around some comfort items around insurance, about risk assessments, and about frequency updates of the planned treatments. All this should be achieved fairly soon, either by Friday or certainly early next week. We've then got to upload the web pages, upload the application pages for the specified free streets, look at alternatives and order the equipment, and make arrangements how we're going to update people in respect of the trial, and also how we're going to recruit volunteers to take part in some of that work. So just finally, are there any questions? I'm happy to take those.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Alistair. And it's interesting that you end with a B, because what we know is that if plants are brought back or maintained that are plants that are native to bees, then the bees actually recover. And there have been bee problems all over the world. In the Netherlands, they put ordinary plants that were native to the area, and the bees actually recovered fully. So it'll be good to see the recovery of the bees. But does anybody have a question for Alistair Wilson, please? Apart from the bees. Yes, Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just a bit concerned, Alistair, when you showed them photos, one with the weeds and one without, we're not going to have pavements full of weeds, are we, like that? Because that's going to be a tripping thing for the elderly and disabled, and especially the blind people, let alone people in wheelchairs. So can you just confirm that with me, or did I miss that bit?
Okay, so with anything where we're making a change, there will be a period of transition. So there will be streets that are going to have weeds in them, and we are going to have to monitor those to make sure. When we signed off the initiation document with the plan back in January, we did do the coordinated impact assessment, and we did identify slip, trips and falls as a significant factor. So where we have having the two trial areas, so both Newnham and Arbury, we'll have to check those streets periodically, make sure we haven't got a build up of weeds. And equally, where someone's signing up to becoming one of the 12 weed-free streets, there's a commitment that they will do the same. So we are very mindful there are slip, trips and hazards, and it's part of the transition.
Can I come back, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, that's good that you're going to be checking, but in the meantime, the pavements are bad enough now, as we all know, where they've got holes and slabs up. I'm really concerned about this, Alistair. I'd like to know that it's going to be checked very often while this trial's going on, just to see, because I think it's a very important issue and we need to keep an eye on that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Bird. Good. I can see that Alistair's taking that on board. Good. And now Councillor DL.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alistair, for the update as well. I know from first-hand experience there's some very enthusiastic residents in West Chesterton who are keen to see to have the opportunity to be one of the streets, and I think actually part of their hope is that they may be able to also help keep the weeds clear themselves through local volunteering work. I wondered where we do get an oversubscription, which I think will happen. What will be the sort of process for selection? How will we prioritise which streets will be ultimately picked for this pilot?
So we've initially set the bar at 12, and those 12 will be inside the trial, what they call the trial. So we'll be supporting those individuals, those groups, with those 12 streets. That doesn't preclude others coming along. They'll just be outside the trial. So they'll still get a level of support, they'll still get a level of commitment and help, but they will not be part of the trial and the reporting back of the trial. Now the intention is we're going to brand those as Happy Bee, pesticide free. There's a branding, an asset we're going to use to help with that. And I'm sure we will be oversubscribed. I think people will come forward with it. We'll just have to try and manage the expectation. It may take a little bit of time, but certainly a commitment for 12 to start with. And as more and more come through, we can certainly mobilise. We've got a budget. We've been allocated a budget in the budget setting round, which can support things like tools and equipment and high-vis and all the things that are going to require. The county council as a partner are supporting us by allowing us to use their volunteering scheme, so people will be insured, and we've got to create a risk assessment. I think the one thing that is of significance is we don't particularly want people we don't want people working on roads that are over 30 miles an hour, purely in terms of risk to themselves. So if someone was to come forward with Newmarket Road as an option, we probably would be saying no. We will be saying no.
Thank you. Now let me just go back. Sorry. And I thought you had your hand up. Yes, Hilary, Councillor Cox.
I did very quickly. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how pleased I am. Thank you, Alistair, that Arbury Ward has been selected as the trial ward, and just how keen we're to support City and work collaboratively with City as county, and myself as county councillor as well. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for this. I think it's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Excellent. So are there any more questions or issues to be raised? Good. Yes, I think there will be, as Councillor Dior said, a not insubstantial number of people who want their streets in. And as he said, yes, West Chesterton, there seem to be quite a number of residents who are keen to be involved in this extremely important project. So thank you. So perhaps we'll conclude that item now with a thank you to Alistair Wilson. And I understand that a resident has joined us and does want to ask a further question. So we've finished the public forum, but we'll come back to it and have public forum number 2 so that we can have the question from the member of the public. It's about Arbury Road. So unfortunately, I don't know the individual's name.
No. Can you hear me?
We certainly can, yes. Darren Tarrant, please
Right.
go ahead and ask your question.
Right.
Thank you.
I was just wondering when the Arbury Road modal filter is going to be implemented. Indeed, it's been planned for quite some time now, and I wonder if you have any further information.
Thank you, indeed, Darren Tarrant. Sorry. Perhaps if I'll respond first, and if others have contributions to make. We're all absolutely aware of the traffic issues on Arbury Road, in addition to the issue that was raised earlier as to the noise. The question that Thomas Andrews raised, we know that there are problems with traffic, there's problems with congestion, and so on. The proposition that there be a modal filter went into the second tranche of the Greater Cambridge Partnership list of possibilities in terms of that program related to COVID-19. And the modal filter did go out, was a part of a consultation process. Now, perhaps Councillor Maccini might like to respond in terms of where the Greater Cambridge Partnership is with Tranche 2.
I can explain that very briefly, Chair, if you want. These were consulted on briefly by the County Council last autumn, and the results of these brief consultations were passed on to the Greater Cambridge Partnership for implementation into the Greater City Access Programme. So this is still ongoing, and it will be done and it will be looked into. We do have the rather more immediate problem right now of accommodating the works that are about to start next month on Milton Road. So we won't be able to make a decision until we've done that. but the tranche 2 schemes, there's a few of them, there's about 10, I think, I forget. They're all in the programme and in the pipeline to be considered as part of City Access, and as you know, we have a rather stringent deadline for that. So in the next 2-3 years, this will all come together. So I hope you will stick with us. Until then, do let me have any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Maschini. And so did you have any follow-up?
Can I just ask what that deadline was? Perhaps it's published, I'm not sure, but if you could just confirm quickly. The
Deadline for what? I'm really sorry.
I'm assuming you're meaning tranche 2, which means effectively the modal filter.
The City Access, I think you mentioned, Councillor Maccini, that there was a need to finalise the City Access programs.
City Access programme needs to be finalised in the lifetime of this county council, so no pressure.
Oh, right, good.
What date was that?
The lifetime of this county council expires at the end of 2024, so.
Okay, all right.
We don't have a lot. It's a huge, enormous project, and it's quite a tight deadline for it. So yeah, as I said, no pressure. There's quite a lot of different strands that need to come together.
And I think that, as Councillor Maschini mentioned, there's the Milton Road project that's starting and that needs to go ahead. And the City Access program is seeking to ensure that there's an overall approach to traffic and traffic calming and issues relating to speed and congestion in Cambridge. That's the aim of the City Access program, to get everything working holistically. So, and I should also make clear that there's never been any promises about any aspect of tranche 2, because it's all subject to consultation. So thanks so much for your question, Mr. Tarrant. We do appreciate it, and we do know that this has been a matter of concern for Arbury Road residents, some of those residents. So now we move on to item number 8, the environmental report for North Area Committee, and we now ask Wendy Johnston to present this report. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just draw your attention to a few key points in the report, if I may, and then I'm happy to take any questions or comments. So this report covers the North area between August of 2021 and January of this year. We are pleased to be able to say that following COVID, the Community Payback Service has resumed their works, and they are working across the city, undertaking activities such as pavement edging to make areas more accessible. So you may well see them in the north in the coming period. Just to let you know, within the report, we have included hotspot maps for each ward, which shows where the fly tipping is, to give you more of an idea where the fly tips have been cleared by the operations team across the 6-month period. Unfortunately, we can't get them for just the ward, so some of them will overlap slightly with other ward pictures. The community engagement team have been really busy out and about in East Chesterton, working on the water lane mini garden, the sort of refurbishing the area. We've had a lot of local volunteers get involved with that, and a lot of positive feedback. So that's been very positive for our team, and we're looking to use that as a model to roll out across other areas in the city. We had a very positive volunteer event at Logan's Meadow Nature Reserve, working with the tree teams that you may have seen, where there was a real large number of new trees. I think it was over 250 of them that were planted over 2 weekends. They also did an awful lot of work in clearing the ditches and the overgrowing bramble and the overhanging willow to make the sites more accessible and encourage the more diverse plant life to grow in the ditches there. And then there were more trees still to plant, so we were lucky enough to be able to work with the local business to get a whole corner of that area planted as well, which is fantastic work that we were able to do that. We are currently in the process of putting in a number of hedgehog holes across the wards. We're taking bookings for any residents that would like to have that done, and I think we've done 40 or so across the city in the last couple of years, and we've had quite an uptake in the West Chesterton area, I believe, recently. So if anyone would like a free hole cut in their fence, we can do that for them. That's a very brief highlight of the report, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions or comments around streets and open spaces for the North area.
Chair,
I've muted myself. Yeah, Councillor Shield, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Wendy, for the great report. I'll be quick. My question's about Cockrell Road, because I've done a lot of visits around there and had a lot of conversations with the residents. First of all, thanks to the teams for doing the clearance work. That's the most important thing. But Wendy, I'm gonna be a bit defensive, okay? Where it says halfway through the paragraph about Cockrell Road, so we're talking page 34. It says the main issue with this location seems to be next to the bins. Over the Christmas period, this was particularly bad due to excess waste for this time of year. My defensive plea on behalf of both the Cockrell Road residents themselves and indeed the arrangements that have been put in place by our teams of the city is that the issue really is the fly tipping from elsewhere. I think that the bin arrangements, as I understand it, I've had numerous conversations with the people in the flats, is that it fits, that the provision fits the population for Cockrell Road, and I do realise that you start off by saying like it's a hotspot for fly tipping, but I do feel that our emphasis should continue to be it's the illegal activity of people coming from elsewhere and chucking stuff, especially into the big Chamberlains. But also, I know that different approaches have been tried, and I wouldn't want our conversation about this to drift into thinking that it's the residents' fault for eating too much at Christmas. I'm sure that's not what is meant by the report, and it's a very helpful report, a good report. But I picked up on that sentence because it's where it says it's particularly bad due to the excess waste for this time of year. Sure, there is more rubbish at Christmas, but it's not really due to the excess waste. It's due to the illegal activity, which for whatever reason we can't quite get on top of, although we have improved around the ward, and with the help of your team, we've done a lot of work in the Brackley Close area, as I've mentioned before, and fantastic work from your teams in terms of actually changing the areas to make it less hospitable to fly tipping. So it's not a criticism, it's just like, let's watch the language so that it doesn't end up blaming the residents, should blame the delinquents, blame the antisocial fly tippers. Antisocial dumpers, I should say. Thank you.
If I could just add there too, we'll come to Councillor Sargent. I think that the photograph in the Cockrell Road item, I'm agreeing with you, Patrick, and also with Ms Johnson, that I think it makes it really crystal clear that this rubbish or fly tipping is coming from elsewhere, because it's such an extraordinary amount. I can't believe that the residents of Cockrell Road are producing this enormous mass that appears in this photograph. Yes, Councillor Shields holding it up. It's unbelievably extraordinary, and it does look like items coming from elsewhere, not just ordinary domestic excess. Domestic excess. Yeah, thank you. Good. So thanks very much, Councillor Shield, and thank you, Ms Johnson. And now to Councillor Sargent.
Well, I think one of the issues that people might have somehow justified all this horrific fly tipping was the restrictions on use of the recycling at Milton. But I note on the website, the County Council website, that you don't need a book anymore and there's no restrictions. So I hope that's being publicised well across the city, because I'm not justifying what people have been doing, but certainly it was a bit more of a chore to book in, and I think there was a restriction of only going 3 times a week. So when you're having a big clear out, you couldn't have a big clear out, and you'd had to phase it over 2 or 3 weeks. But so that's good news. But I just wonder how successful we're being, Wendy, in terms of enforcement. You know, what sort of percentage success do we get with these sort of fly tipping incidents in enforcing and bringing people to book?
Can I come back on that, Chair?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, beg your pardon. Please do.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we recognise that the restrictions at Milton have certainly impacted on people's ability to undertake lawful and legal waste disposal. There's no doubt that the COVID restrictions have impacted that, and we do hope that with the no need to book anymore, that will actually act as a positive reinforcement how easy it is to take your excess waste and dispose of it legally and correctly and free of charge. It's very difficult to measure success of enforcement because when we come across a fly tip, obviously it depends whether we find evidence, whether we're able to identify people responsible, whether we have people that have witnessed an offence or unable to or willing to stand up and say, I saw X, Y, and Z. A lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that, particularly if it's their neighbours or people in their neighbourhood, and they might have to face them in court. So we often face difficulties in witnesses coming forward and being happy to discuss that with us. Where we do find evidence, we have a very high rate of people actually responding to our inquiries. A significant amount of those are now diverted away from the courts, so they're dealt with via fixed penalty notices. When we look at our figures overall, we used to have a lot more cases going to court, which may have been picked up by the local media. These are now dealt with at a sort of an easier way by offering people the opportunity to have a fixed penalty notice where they pay the fee for the incident they've committed. There are obviously various different ones that we do enforce against, and so there are various different enforcement options we can have. You know, some cases people might have had a genuine misunderstanding about waste disposal, and it might be that we are serving education letters on them. They don't always count as what people see as types of enforcement activity. So I think we are very successful in what we do, but again, it's very difficult to measure something where it's not always quantifiable, if that sort of answers that question around how successful we are, really. If I can just come back on Cockerell Road, I know that picture's quite excessive. I think there were 2 things that contributed to that. We are aware that there was an extra week between bin collections. So actually, I think the residents had to go, I think it was either 2 or 3 weeks between collections. So that did actually add. So a lot of that waste is the residents simply because the bin collections weren't available. Where we are finding fly tipping, some of it is from external people to Cockerell Road flats and properties. Some of it is the residents responsible there who find the bins are full up. They can't dispose of it. They can't get a slot at Milton Tip for whatever reason, and may take that decision to ultimately fly tip their waste. So it's a combination of some of it's the residents, some of it is definitely waste coming in. But in this particular example, probably not the best photo, where actually I think a large proportion of it is where the bins were actually delayed an extra week from collection simply due to the time of year. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy Johnston. Good. Now, I just see Councillor Todd Jones, and then Councillor Shield wants to come back too, but first Councillor Todd Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that point that Wendy Johnston just made regarding the Cockerell Road flats in particular, because I've reported some of the incidents of fly tipping quite frequently, mainly when specific residents have got in touch with me. And I know one of the sort of potential solutions that had been offered, and I think may have been used in the past, regarding perhaps particularly sort of notorious sites or sites where there's a significant amount and persistent fly tipping, is whether possibly redeployable CCTV could be used. And I don't know whether that would be appropriate or it meets any kind of criteria in not just Cockerell Road flats, but maybe other serious problems in other sites. But Cockerell Road Flats has been a particular issue, I know, for some time. So it's just really a query about whether that is, to some extent, obviously a temporary but possible preventative solution that could be considered. Thanks very much.
I'm muted. Councillor Shield, is yours a follow-up on this issue as well, or is it a separate one? Yeah, so perhaps if we have Councillor Shield, and then we'll come back to Wendy Johnson. Thanks, Councillor Shield.
I'll be very quick, and thank you, Wendy, and it's very fair-minded of you to say that that gap in the schedule is one of the things that fed into the overflowing that we see, and so I'll keep that in mind. I suppose again, just to make excuses a little bit for the residents, and I'm not talking about any particular individuals, but I can sort of imagine how if the overflowing that I've known there and in other places not so far away has sometimes happened because residents, bona fide residents, have come with their usual, maybe slightly more than usual amount of rubbish to find it's full already, and yes, maybe have placed it next to the and then. So you're not wrong, Wendy, to say that sometimes it is actually the people who live there, but without wanting to make excuses for them, I think that that's sometimes just because, as you say, they're just finding a full bin. And I do suspect, and maybe we'll never know for sure, but a lot of the time that is because people are just swinging by, doing their dumping, but in the bins. So it's not exactly fly tipping, but it's stuff from elsewhere. And I'm only saying that, I mean, I haven't got video recordings of this, but I'm saying it because numerous residents have told me that's what they've witnessed going on. But can I just end on a very positive note, still in relation to waste, and a very positive experience that I had the day before yesterday, and it's not unusual. I always have a positive experience at the Milton Village Recycling Centre. We were getting rid of a fridge, a washing machine, a massive telly, and the help we got from the staff there, as always, was fantastic. But they didn't know I was a councillor or anything, you know. I was just nobody. I was just helping a friend, and I have to say, you know, that they're always good-natured, cheerful. They'll always direct you to the right place, and above all, I was offering to carry the fridge to the container where I know the fridges are going, but the lady wouldn't let me. She insisted on using the sat barrow, and then she carried a massive telly to the other side of the yard. And so yeah, a lady from London and a chap from Liverpool helped us, and they are really fantastic, and they always are. And I don't quite agree with Councillor Sargent. The booking process was onerous, but anyway, it ends as of today. Today is the first day of no need to book anymore. But well done, Wendy. If that comes under your purview, I really want to pay tribute to you and your team.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Back to Ms Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of redeployable CCTV cameras, I'm assuming that you mean the overt ones that, that you get watching the city centre. I mean, we can apply for those, the same as any of the council teams who are dealing with antisocial behaviour. We have applied for them for different areas in the past, not being successful because there's often a very long and lengthy waiting list, and there are often perhaps more serious crimes or different weightings of seriousness or needs for the cameras. So yes, we can apply for them where we've definitely got the evidence. For example, an area like this would certainly be something we could apply for. So I'll speak to the area officer to see if she's got sufficient evidence that we can put together an application to the CCTV team. But obviously their decision whether to put the cameras up is up to them. If they don't capture anything within a certain period of time, often that means that they get moved on to another area. But I'm certainly happy to investigate that with the area officer and see what we get. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Johnson, and I see Councillor Bird is with a question too.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Wendy. I wonder, could you advise me if there's when East Chesterton will have a chance to have a community clean-up day? I think it's a very long time since we had one, and we really could do with one.
Good. Thanks, Ms Johnson.
Yeah, we have that one already booked in for the summertime. So we carried the last one out in September, I believe, not October, sorry, with the Methodist Church, because Ashfield Road is the best location for us to have that. It's kind of quite central for the whole of East Chesterton, and I think we've penciled that in for the latter end of June, but we haven't got an exact confirmed date at the moment, but it's definitely on our books for the next financial year to come back to East Chesterton and get that event in.
Okay, Chair, could I come back?
Sure, certainly, please.
Lovely. So I know the Methodist Church is the best place, but would we, because there's areas like Cam Causeway, Kendall Way, would really be good to have a skip on them roads on the clean-up day. Is that possible?
So I believe that Richard Cole from City Homes, obviously he has a different pot of funding he has access to, and he runs mini skip days, which often run during the week, and are slightly smaller events which are often more localised. I'm not quite sure whether they've actually agreed theirs for next year, but I think Richard is a very good point of contact if you'd like to suggest any, because if he's not able to run them or doesn't have them planned, it may well be that it's something that we can actually look at. I know we were potentially trying to pencil in Mortlock Avenue as another one, because we recognise that particular site, although it's quite small, has a lot of waste, so it might have benefited from what we call a mini day, where we might provide sort of less waste streams to recycle, but and sort of do it during a weekday where less people can access it, but kind of we can target a smaller area and remove waste specific to that sort of small area. So I would suggest maybe contact Richard in the first instance, and if if he's not able to do that, or you don't get any luck, please come back to me and I'll certainly see if we can get something booked in. We're more than happy to receive suggestions of locations. It's just a matter of whether we can logistically and strategically fit them in with our plans and what's going on at different times of the year, really.
So Wendy, what was it? Richard
Cole.
All right, thanks very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Good, thank you. I see we're just on 8 o'clock, but if we could just get in, there's a question from Councillor Gawthorpe-Wood. Councillor Gawthorpe-Wood, you've got your hand up.
Hello. I understand we've got a community clean-up day on Saturday, next Saturday the 5th. I'm very pleased to hear. My question is really, I was getting a lot of fly tipping, emails about fly tipping, in fact in the Buchan Street area, and one of the problems is even if when people use the website and get a ticket number, then they don't know whether it's going to be when it's going to be actioned. Now clearly it's much better to have a whole group of things together, and then the street cleanup team can go round and sort it out. We've had everything from builders' waste, furniture, sofas, you name it. But I wondered if there was a way that you could give people feedback as to when they can expect a response.
Good, thanks, Councillor Gawthorpe. Yes, back to Ms Johnston. Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. So as far as I'm aware, obviously what happens when someone puts a web form, a report of fly tipping in, is that is immediately sent to the area team leader or a member of the team covering, who then triages that particular case. In some cases that will go to the enforcement team where there might be an inclination of evidence or a witness, or in other cases where it just looks like there's rubbish dumped with no particular streams of investigation, that will go to our operations team to clear. Their aim, I believe, is to remove waste within 5 days, unless it happens to be hazardous, dangerous, preventing an obstruction, a lot of different criteria. But if it's just a general builder's rubbish maybe dumped on the path that's not causing any health hazards or any issues, it would be 5 days that they aim to clear that waste. I do understand that there are some developments with our ICT team where people will, I'm not sure at what point, may be able to sort of track their fly tip report from beginning to end. I'm not able to comment as to when that might be or where that might be, but I do know that that is something that is being looked at, and I do hope that that will be something in the future that people will be able to do, because it would make sense. Likewise, if something wasn't on site or people couldn't find it, it would be useful for members of the public to know an officer couldn't find it or it had moved, to know that, you know, what was going on really. But in the meantime, if people find that a job isn't done, they can contact us. They can either contact our customer service team. We often have people contact us via Twitter. Anywhere they can reach out to us. We are more than happy to chase up any jobs that they feel haven't been actioned within those 5 days, or they feel extenuating circumstances need removing sooner. Please let us know. And I do believe that your team leader's contact details for the North are in the report. I believe Kieran is your North area team leader. So if you find anything that's not being actioned, by all means, Kieran's contact details are in there. But otherwise, yeah, I hope that answers the question really.
Thanks so much, Ms Johnson. Is that fine? Yeah, good. Now, look, I've just got a couple of really quick issues, if I could. Number one, a resident just told me that on the corner of Chesterton Road and Victoria Parade, there was a bedding shop, and that bedding shop has long gone. But unfortunately, on the footpath, there now seems to be somebody who is recreating the bedding shop, because I was informed that there's a mattress and other things. So I'm just drawing that to attention. That's number one. Number two, West Chesterton would love to have a clean-up day, so we do hope we're on schedule too. And then number three, I just wanted to pay tribute to you as well, and to your team, and particularly those who work in this explicit area of rubbish removal. We know that the rubbish removalist team has suffered from COVID-19 problems, and this has led to some difficulties with bin removal, and particularly the green bin removal. And there's been a lot of concern about this on the part of the residents, but we all know, and the residents know when they think about it, that in the end, the rubbish removalists are dedicated people. They're part of a dedicated team, and it wouldn't be any good if we didn't have a dedicated team of rubbish removalists. So we would really appreciate it. I'm saying this on behalf of the committee, and I'm sure they'll all agree, that if our message could go back to the rubbish removalist team, that however angry sometimes people do get because hasn't been emptied and they expected it to be so, on reflection, they do recognise that there are problems when people are ill, and particularly over this troubling COVID-19 period. So thank you very much to you and your team. So I think that then concludes our North Area Committee agenda. And I haven't received any indication that there are some matters of concern that people want to raise as any other business. So perhaps we should conclude, unless there are people waving anxiously with extra items to add, but there aren't. So I'll just say thank you very much to all the councillors, and thank you to Councillor McQueen for enabling me as the Deputy Chair to preside on this occasion. And thank you to all the questioners, to all the residents who raised their questions to us, which are very much appreciated, and to all residents who participated in this meeting, seen and unseen. So thank you, and we'll now end the live stream. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.